How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and as you can see by the title and what the screen's looking like right now, I'm going to be doing a UFC 316 card builder. I love doing these videos, and this is probably the most perfect time to make one of these, because UFC 316 is a blank slate. There is literally nothing added to it as I'm recording this, which is Sunday. So I just basically can fucking throw shit at a wall and see if it sticks. This gives me an opportunity to talk about matchups I do want to see in the UFC, bars, and also just matchups that I think would make a really solid pay-per-view. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is probably not the most stacked one, okay, but let's get right into it. 5 prelims coming your way, 5 main card fights, you know how we do it. If you don't, my bad. But first prelim matchup I have for you guys. I've made a matchup similar to this a while ago. Ramiz Brahimaj versus Jacoby Smith. I've talked a lot about Jacoby Smith. If you guys remember in my awards video, I dubbed him as the Sean O'Malley. I gave him the Sean O'Malley Award, basically saying I think he's going to be the most successful guy from this year's Dana White's Contender Series. Or last year's, rather. He had a very explosive debut by knocking out Preston Parsons. He doesn't have a fight booked yet. I think that after that fight, and just if you go and watch his Contender Series fight, he's very good. A very good fighter, and a lot of these Contender Series guys are getting big fights already. We saw 3 of them fight last night, or Saturday, rather. And Ramiz Brahimaj, what I think makes this matchup viable is UFC 316 is in New Jersey. It's in Newark. Ramiz Brahimaj is from the Bronx in New York. So I think that it's kind of close near there. Jacoby Smith, up-and-coming guy. Ramiz just got a brutal KO over Mickey Gall last time out in New York. Didn't take a lot of damage either. I think that this matchup does make a lot of sense, thematically as well. But I do think this would be a very good matchup. Also, just a step up for Jacoby. Ramiz Brahimaj doesn't have the prettiest record. He's 11-5. I think he's 6-5 overall in the UFC. But he's fought some good guys. So it'll be a good test for Jacoby Smith. Let's move to the next prelim matchup. I don't want to waste too much time on these. I think this next one's a flyweight. Yep. I literally made this matchup in the previous video. Charles Johnson versus Andre Lima. I think this is also very viable. Charles Johnson is one of the most active fighters in the entirety of the UFC. I think that's something that's pretty easy to say. Andre Lima, I think this is the matchup they will make next. Maybe not at 316, but not only do I think this matchup makes sense, I think it would be a very fun fight. Andre Lima, up to this point in his career, has had some really, his last performance against Daniel Perez that just happened was very, very good. It was fun to watch as well. It was a complete demolition job at flyweight. Charles Johnson is always in competitive fights. You will very rarely see him get absolutely skunked, besides when he fought Muhammad Mukayev. That's the only time that he's really been shut out. Besides that, he has great cardio, good takedown defense, and overall just a solid presence on the feet. Very if he can get going, he can get going. Don't people forget, man, I love Joshua Van. This guy knocked him the fuck out, all right? Charles Johnson is a good fighter. Andre Lima, 4-0 in the UFC at this point. Charles Johnson won 4 fights in a row last year. He had a crazy year last year. He slipped up against Ramazan Tamirov just this 1st of March. But I do think this fight makes a lot of sense. Charles is 15th. Andre Lima's beat 4 guys already in the flyweight division. And in flyweight, you usually only need to beat 2 guys to get a ranked opportunity. Ramazan Tamirov got a ranking shot in his 2nd fight in the UFC. So I think Andre Lima deserves it. Also does make a lot of sense. Charles Johnson, it should be a solid fight. I put on the prelims because they put fucking Charles Johnson as basically the opener of a card last time out, and he was number 12. So I think it does make a lot of sense. I think it would be very fun. We move to the next prelim, which is, honestly, I don't know what it is. Oh yeah, give me Muktabek Oralbai versus Charlie Campbell. Put this in my veins, bro. If you guys don't know, you guys know who Muktabek Oralbai is. I don't need to explain. Dude was in a Fight of the Year contender against Mateusz Rąbecki last time out at UFC 308, which is why I've given him a lot of time to recover from the fight that he had. He had a very busted up eye. I don't know if it was, and I think he said he didn't break his orbital bone, which is why I'm rebooking him this early. I think this fight would be fucking nuts, dude. Charlie Campbell, kind of like a glass cannon a little bit. We've seen him get knocked out before by Chris Duncan. We've seen him get hurt by Trevor Peek a couple times in their fight, but he's beating these dudes. He had a crazy win over Alex Reyes, knocked him out. He beat Trevor Peek in their fight. 2-0 in the UFC in the lightweight division. Muktabek Orobai did take a step down after losing to Mateusz Rombetsky. If he beat him, he probably would have been fighting for a ranking slot. You know, Muktabek, he's beaten Elves Brenner. He beat Uros Medic. Is that all? Is Muktabek only 2? Am I forgetting a fight? I think I might be forgetting a fight. I don't know, but Muktabek's a badass. This fight would be so sick. Because, like, we've seen Muktabek get hurt, like, quite a bit in the UFC. Like, people forget Uros almost had him out of there in the first round, albeit that was at welterweight. But Muktabek, you know, he almost got knocked out by Mateusz Rombetsky. He got hurt, like, once by Elvis Brenner. But he has some pop in his hands as well. He hits hard as fuck. And he's got great grappling as well. I think this fight would just be a dynamic fight. Very good contenders at lightweight. Very good prospects to look out for. I think like this is like one of those fights like who is the real deal? You know what I mean? Like who's gonna be able to get that step up in competition? I think it makes a lot of sense. If Muktabek would have beat Mateusz, this fight would have made no sense. But since he did lose, it does make quite a bit of sense. Charlie Campbell was supposed to fight Mauricio Rufy at 309 as well. So this shows that Charlie Campbell isn't scared of like crazy competition. He was going to fight Mauricio Rufy, got pulled out with an injury. So I think this fight makes a lot of sense. We move to the next fight, which is, oh man, the X popped up. Oh fuck. What's the next matchup? Oh yeah, ranked bantamweights. Kyler Phillips versus Marcus McGee. I think this fight makes a lot of sense as well. It's a lot of fights that make sense in my personal opinion. For one, ranked bantamweights. Phillips is 12, McGee is 13. Kyler Phillips has always been kind of a guy that everyone thinks is going to become something, but he kind of doesn't. You know what I mean? Like he always falls short. He'll win like some big fight. Like he beat Song Yadong back in like 2020. But like since then, he kind of just like he just recently lost to Rob Font. Had a very dynamic performance against Pedro Munoz. But like they're far and few between. He's not a very active guy, which is the only reason why this fight might not happen is because Kyler Phillips is very inactive as a fighter. But I do think that this fight will be next. It's either Kyler Phillips versus Marcus McGee or Kyler versus like Vinicius Oliveira. You know what I mean? Like a very big prospect on the come up is who they're going to give Kyler Phillips to. I think Marcus McGee deserves it a bit more than like a Vinicius Oliveira, for example, because Marcus is already ranked. He just beat Jonathan Martinez, who was, in my opinion, one of the more underrated bantamweights on the entire roster. I love Jonathan Martinez, and Marcus McGee kind of just did more than him. I think this fight makes a stylistic matchup as well. Thematically, I think Marcus McGee, he trains in Arizona at the MMA lab, but I think he was born in Detroit. So he's kind of in like that northeast area, kind of. I think he might have moved to New York at some point. He's kind of like he's a sick dude. I love Marcus McGee. He's cool. Kyler Phillips, also, just like on the feet, I think this fight would be very good. If Kyler Phillips actually uses his striking ability, I think this fight would be so sick. Because, like, instead of just, like, backing up, because Marcus McGee will advance forward, but, like, he doesn't have, like, insane pressure. He hits hard as fuck, though. So it's one of those fights where it's like you got a up-and-coming guy with Marcus McGee versus a staple in the division that is Kyler Phillips. Marcus McGee 4-0. Kyler Phillips, I believe, is 7-2 in the UFC. Something you could throw on there. Ranked bantamweights, just to stir the pot a little bit. I do believe this matchup will be next. Let's move to the featured prelim, which is Arnold Allen versus Aljamain Sterling. Now, I know some of you are going to look at this and say, this is going to be on the prelims. When I tell you they had Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev on the prelims of UFC 310, it wasn't even the featured prelim there. They had Dominic Reyes, Anthony Smith above it. That was a top 5 featherweight fight. And they didn't have it on the featured prelim. They had it below. I'm pretty sure they had this below Lowkey versus Temba Garimbo. So, yeah, they're not going to put Aljamain Sterling on the main card, sadly, for no reason. They hate him. I believe this matchup makes a whole lot of sense. Number 7 versus number 9, I believe, is what the rankings are. Just like you look at it, and you're like, well, that just rankings-wise makes a shit ton of sense. Arnold Allen just beat Giga Chikadze after going on a 2-fight losing streak against Holloway and Movsar Evloev. Aljo's coming off a loss to Movsar Evloev, beat Calvin Kattar to become ranked. Aljo, former bantamweight champion, arguable like top 3 bantamweight of all fucking time. He goes in there, makes a competitive fight with Movsar Evloev to the point where some delusional fans really believe he was robbed very harshly in that fight. I believe it was 2-1 Movsar, but because some people think that he won the third, which makes no sense whatsoever, but that's besides the point. Aljamain, I think the grappling in this fight would be insanely, like, wild to watch, because if you look at, like, an Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev, if you rewatch that fight, Arnold Allen actually did a very solid job at defending takedowns as the fight went on. He honestly, the area he struggled the most in certain areas was the striking. He got clobbered with that left hook in the second round. The first round was competitive. I do believe, by the way, that is a fight that you could argue Arnold Allen did win. Like, Movsar Evloev makes it close with, like, quite a few people. But the striking would be wild to watch because Aljo is, like, supremely unconventional with his striking attempts. That's something that he did succeed with against Movsar Evloev. And we saw him succeed against Calvin Kattar in moments as well. Like, his striking is very unorthodox and weird to work with. He beat Piotr Jan in the first round, mostly with striking. Like, people forget, man, Aljamain Sterling, dude. He's all right, man. Yeah, I think this, like, I think Arnold Allen's going to get, like, a step up in competition. If you were to give Arnold Allen a step up, it would be him versus Brian Ortega, but Brian Ortega is dead set on moving up. And Arnold Allen doesn't have a fight, hasn't fought since 304. I don't think there's any reason to keep him out of competition for over a year when he didn't really take a whole lot of damage against Giga Chikadze. So make this matchup legacy on the line for Aljamain Sterling. Also, I think this fight, like, could be a solid win for Aljo. If he beats Arnold Allen, that's easily right back into, like number 1 contenders fight instantly. Because Arnold Allen has only lost to, like, really solid guys. So, let's see what happens. Let's move to this main card. UFC 316, brought to you by How to Train Your Dragon. This movie's coming out in June. By the way, did I not call that UFC 313 was going to get sponsored by Novocaine? Did I not call that? Dude, if 314's brought to you by Minecraft, I might legit be the fucking guy. But UFC 316 main card. I think the first fight on here is going to be Brian Battle versus Oban Elliott. I love this fight. This is a fight that, like, MMA Guru has, like, brought to life somehow, some way. Like, brought this matchup up, and I think it does make a lot of sense. For one, I am a firm believer that Brian Battle he arguably lost to Randy Brown at 310. That is a very competitive fight and very close. That is a, like, wildly competitive fight if you really watch it. And Oban Elliott's 3-0 in the UFC. He just knocked out Basil Hafez at 309. Crazy knockout win. And Brian Battle's on a win streak of his own. I think this fight makes a lot of sense because welterweight is very congested near the top. I think this fight would be perfect to see who would get a fight against a, I don't know, maybe like a Michael Venom Page, maybe. Something along those lines. Something to get like a Vicente Luque, even. Possibly like one of those fights. Oban Elliott, you know, he didn't take a lot of damage against Basil Hafez. That was in November. I think this fight makes a whole lot of sense. I think it'd be a banger fight as well because they're both solid strikers. Oban Elliott has improved his striking vastly since his debut against Val Woodburn. And Brian Battle has a lot of star power behind him. He beat fucking Randy Brown at 310. Very close fight. Had the Paris scandal against Kevin Gisset. I know y'all did not think that I was going to get beat by a French dude in Paris. Like, dude, he's got, like, a lot of backing behind him by the UFC. Throwing him on a main card is not ludicrous to say. So, I think Guru and Oban are pushing for this fight to be on 315. I think 315 is a little full. And I think that's already a pretty stacked pay-per-view. So I think putting this on 316 would be a perfect idea, honestly. So, yeah, throw it on 316. Let it give some hype of his own, because I did stack this card up pretty good. I think this card would actually be very good for a pay-per-view. But I think Brian Battle, Oban Elliott, make it. Give Brian Battle more than 2 weeks notice so he can actually make weight. That's another thing. So, let's go. We'll move to the next fight. I have ranked flyweights on here. Mir Albazi versus Manel Kape. Listen, I'm putting this on there solely based on the fact that if the main event is what I think it's going to be, you need to have. Because this is what they used to do with Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya would defend his title. And then a couple fights down, there would be a number one contender fight at middleweight. UFC 271. When he fought Robert Whittaker, below that, in I believe the featured fight, was Derek Brunson, Jared Cannonier. And Jared Cannonier ended up winning 276. They did Jared Cannonier, Israel Adesanya. In the featured fight, Strickland Bahia, right? They used to do this all the time with Israel Adesanya. I think they need to start doing it with Alexandre Pantoja, which I kind of gives away what I believe the main event will be. But I think this fight also makes a lot of sense. Amir Albazi beat Kai Kara France in a very questionable decision, then just got his ass whooped by Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno's fighting Steve Erceg in 2 weekends. So he probably won't be able to make this date. Manel Kape and Pantoja have beef already have a background. Manel Kape has been calling for a fight against the dude that I have in the main event, both of them. I think it makes a lot of sense. Manel Kape had a very weird performance against Asu Almabayev, arguably won because he eye-poked him twice. Let's go. Also fouled against Bruno Silva. I don't know what it is with Manel Kape and fouling people. But he's number 6. Amir's number 3. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. It's either Amir Albazi fights Kape or he fights Tatsuro Taira. I'd rather see Kape versus Albazi, because I think that, like, striking-wise, I think it'd be a fun fight as well. And also, I want to see how, I know Manel Kape has improved his takedown defense a shit ton. We saw that in the Asu Almabayev fight. Let's see it against another ground specialist, another solid wrestler. Let's see if he really is that good of an anti-grappler like Kai Kara France is, for example. So, I think it would cause a very good press conference as well, having him on the same press table as some other folks, if you get what I'm saying. Maybe they might have to do what they did at 311 and have the co-main and main on the same side, but, that is what it is. But I do believe this fight is available next. Brandon Royval, I don't know how injured he is. You could also do them again. You could rebook that. I would love to see this fight because I think Royval is at a point where I don't believe he should be fighting number 6. I really don't think he should, because I think that's very disrespectful almost in a way to Brandon Royval that he's fought 2 top 5 guys, beat Moreno, beat Tatsuro Taira. One was undefeated, one is a former 2-time flyweight champion, and he has to fight Manel Kape next? It kind of is it's a little disrespectful in my opinion. I don't think Royval should have to do that. If he does, so be it. But, I don't really think that matchup. I think if anyone deserves a title shot, it's Royval, but they won't give it to him, which kind of sucks. But let's move to this featured fight that I have cooking up for you guys. I have Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov. Now, Paulo Costa hasn't fought since UFC 302. He hasn't even been booked since then. That was back in June of last year. He hasn't been booked for a fight since. I think this fight makes a shit ton of sense. For one, Paulo Costa's 1-4 in his last 5. He does not deserve another top fucking 10 fighter. Okay? Make him fight someone under him so that we can actually see some movement in the middleweight division. Second off, Roman Kopylov is very entertaining. He'll be able to match the entertainment value that Paulo Costa brings. Also, Roman's ranked now. They put him at number 15 for some reason. I don't really believe he deserves to be ranked, if I'm being totally honest with you. But he is coming off a 2-fight win streak over Cesar Almeida at 302 as well, so they have history. And Chris Curtis. Knocked out Chris Curtis. First guy to do it in the entirety of the UFC. Alright, first guy to knock him out. Questionable KO. But he did it. And also, I think it just makes a lot of sense. Number 15 versus number 11. Let's get some fucking movement in the middleweight division. I'm sick and tired of seeing Paulo Costa lose to top 5ers over and over again for no reason. He's calling for a Jared Cannonier matchup for some fucking reason. Jared Cannonier just fought an unranked Gregory Rodriguez. He should not be fighting you. In fact, he should be fighting maybe Anthony Hernandez, who is actually an up-and-coming prospect who I have some fucking high hopes for. Paulo Costa is not going to become a top fiver anytime fucking soon, okay? Get a fucking win against a ranked opponent that's not... His last win is Luke Rockhold at 278. He beat Luke Rockhold. He took him to a decision. He didn't even finish him. It was like a competitive fight. He got hurt like 3 times by Luke Rockhold. Like, I get it. He's competitive somewhat with Robert Whittaker. I get it. He got fucking schooled by Sean Strickland. I get it. He's an entertaining guy. He's got a fun factor behind him. He's funny as fuck. I am sick and fucking tired of seeing Paulo Costa. I'm sorry this has turned into a rant. Like, I already ranted about Paulo Costa in the guys will exit the top 15 of their divisions. But, like, I'm serious. Like, it's pissing me off in a way. Because, like, I see him get these booked matchups, and I see people like, oh, Costa might win this one. Oh, Costa might actually fucking win this. No, he's not, dude. Like, stop booking him against these fucking top 7 guys. He's not that good. Alright? Dude lost to Marvin Vettori as well. Which, dude, that loss is aging like fucking milk. Like, that loss is dog shit. Like, that's actually really bad. But, again, like I was talking about earlier before I had to go on that little tangent, Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov is a fun fight. For one, the striking would be very entertaining. Paulo Costa, very powerful, big dude for the division. Roman Kopylov, a bit more technical than he is. Very solid kicking game. It would be a very good matchup for Paulo Costa to maybe get a ranked win for a while. Who was his last ranked win? Yoel Romero, 2019? Go figure. And that was a very questionable decision as well. So, yeah, I think it'd just be a solid fight as well. I think the striking would be very entertaining. The kicking game of Roman Kopylov versus the brute bully mentality that is Paulo Costa when he's actually able to walk down people instead of backing up for 25 minutes. So, yeah, I think that'd be a good fight. Co-main event, I'll talk less about this one. Women's bantamweight title fight, Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Do any of you care about a breakdown of this? I think this fight just makes sense. Earlier I said that I think Kayla Harrison is going to fight Norma Dumont because apparently Juliana Pena is injured. It seems like that isn't the case anymore. It seems like Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison is back on the table, which is the fight that should be getting made because Kayla Harrison is just going to beat her. Also, like, people brushed over how bad of a decision Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington was because nobody cared about the fight. I haven't forgot about that. Like, that was a complete and utter robbery. Like, I didn't forget about it. Like, that's a terrible decision. I think Kayla Harrison mauls her. Okay. Let's move to the main event that I have cooked up, and you can probably guess what it is based on the earlier matchup I mentioned. Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara France. Technically the second time they fought on the Ultimate Fighter all the way back when they were on the Ultimate Fighter season, like 20, I believe it was. It was that flyweight champion division, or season where everyone was a champion in other divisions. Not other divisions, in other organizations, rather. Does this fight make a whole lot of sense? Not really. Kai Kara France got beat by Amir Albazi, even though I do think he won and was robbed. He did lose. Like, when the ink dries, he lost to Amir Albazi. And he knocked out Steve Erceg, which is, like, a good win. Because, like, that was Steve Erceg coming off the Pantoja fight. But, like, Steve was, like, number 9. So does it make a whole lot of sense? No. Brandon Royval should be getting a title shot. Will he? No, because he's lost to him twice already. And Kai Kara France already lost to Pantoja on the Ultimate Fighter. So they're just going to give it to him, which I honestly want to see Pantoja Merab, because I think that fight makes a whole lot of sense, but they won't make it because they're so dead set on Sean O'Malley getting a title shot or a rematch with Merab, which, like, I guess, okay, go for it. But that just leaves us with another Pantoja title fight pay-per-view main event, which is why I kind of stacked up the rest of the card a little bit decently well, just so that we could be able to watch these two title fights, you know what I mean? So, Pantoja Kai Kara France, very interesting matchup, honestly. It really depends on how well Kai Kara's anti-grappling is going to work in this fight, because I do believe he is the best anti-grappler in that division. Very solid takedown defense, like brick wall type shit. If you need to see it, watch the Umar Albazi fight back. He's very good defensively when it comes to takedown defense. And the feet is interesting because I think Pantoja to the day is still underrated on his striking offense and ability to strike with people. Like, people still think of him as like this marauderist idiot who just spams hooks at people. Like, he does have a good jab. He can strike with like the best in the division. We've seen him do it before. It's just that his grappling is that good at flyweight, to which he can control people on the ground very easily and sub them very easily. That's how good he is. So yeah, I think that Pantoja would probably win this, but I do believe it would be an interesting matchup to see if Kai Kara France's power and technique would be able to work against Pantoja if he's able to defend the takedowns. How well will the striking exchanges go for Pantoja or Kai Kara in a sense? So yeah, I think that's my card builder for UFC. I know I made this shit fucking holy. This is my card builder for UFC 316. If you guys have any ideas for fights you'd like to see on this, leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, give it a like. If you like this content, subscribe. I make content like this every other week. I try to make some unique videos. But yeah. Yeah. This weekend, I'll try and get another video out for you guys. If I can't, you know what my next upload will be. This weekend, UFC London. We go back to London with Leon Edwards versus Sean Brady, Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Olberg, and Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. And then a couple other great fights on there as well. So if I don't see you in another video, I'll see you for that picks and breakdown. But yeah, I'll see you guys then. Peace.